Well, it's actually happening. Today, in August of 2023, you have colleges reinstituting their COVID mandates. You have over 100 schools putting in place vaccine mandates. You have a major Hollywood studio bringing back mask mandates, contact tracing, and even mandatory COVID tests. You have the federal government buying up brand new COVID supplies in bulk, hiring advisors, and investing over $1 billion into new vaccines. And all the while, you have the media in this country dutifully justifying all these actions as necessary to stave off another COVID outbreak. As an example of what this actually looks like in practice, let's look at the case of Morris Brown College over in Georgia. They recently sent out this notice right here informing students and staff members about the return of these COVID mandates. But don't worry, because in the notice, they made it clear that these are just temporary measures that are being put into place for only 14 days. Here's specifically what it says, quote, "Effective immediately, Morris Brown College has reinstated its COVID-19 mask mandate due to reports of positive cases among students in the Atlanta University Center. Over the next 14 days, the following protocols will be in place. 1. Mask wearing. All students and employees are required to wear face masks, although they were kind enough to allow staff members to remove the masks if they were alone in their own office. Secondly, students must maintain physical distance, I assume 6 feet at least. Thirdly, parties and large student gatherings have been suspended. Fourthly, isolation and quarantine measures are back for anyone who has symptoms of COVID. 5, students are expected to comply with all contact tracing measures that were implemented by the school. 6, students and staff will both have their temperatures checked upon arriving on campus. And 7, everyone is expected to use hand sanitizer at all times." But again, don't worry, because as this notice makes clear, all these different measures are only being put into place for the next 14 days, just to slow the spread. And so the students can be sure that in 2 weeks' time, everything will go back to normal. And it's also worth noting that this college in Georgia isn't alone. Schools such as Rutgers and Georgetown University still require masks to be worn indoors. Furthermore, according to No College Mandates, which is a group that tracks COVID policies in higher education throughout the country, they found that there are still over 100 schools across the nation which require students to be vaccinated in order to attend in-person classes. However, it's worth noting that it's not just schools. Corporations are also bringing back the mandates. For instance, you have Lionsgate, which is a major Hollywood studio behind movies such as The Hunger Games, John Wick, The Day After Tomorrow, among many, many, many others. And after several of their employees tested positive for COVID, the executives at Lionsgate decided to bring back the mandates. Here was what an internal email that was obtained from within the company by a media outlet called Deadline. Here's what that internal email said, quote, "Employees must wear a medical-grade face covering, either a surgical mask, KN95 or N95, when indoors, except when alone in an office with the door closed, when actively eating, actively drinking at their desk or workstation, or if they are the only individual present in a large open workspace." In another throwback to the early years of the pandemic, every Lionsgate employee is required to perform a daily self-screening prior to coming to the office each day and must notify the COVID response manager and stay home if exhibiting any symptoms or have traveled internationally in the last 10 days. The latter would impact a number of people coming in the middle of the summer vacation season. Lionsgate also is conducting contact tracing and providing at-home COVID test kits upon request. Imagine coming back from your summer vacation in the year 2023 only to find out that your company has reinstated all of their COVID mandates. Regardless, it's not even just the schools and just the businesses. Governments, both local and federal, well, they're gearing up for a supposed resurgence of COVID. For instance, in a public message, the Los Angeles Public Health Agency, they officially recommended that, quote-unquote, higher risk residents need to wear masks. Citing an increasing number of COVID cases, the LA County Health Agency, they suggested people to wear masks, and then they added this, quote, "To reduce risks, especially as transmission of the virus is increasing, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health asks those more vulnerable to take precautions to reduce potential exposures. As fall approaches, all residents are encouraged to ask their healthcare provider what vaccines they should get to protect against COVID-19. The FDA and the CDC are slated to consider authorizing a new COVID-19 vaccine next month." And speaking of that 7th booster, just yesterday, the Biden administration announced a new $1.4 billion federal investment in developing the so-called next generation of COVID vaccines and treatments. Specifically, it was Mr. Javier Becerra, the current Secretary of Health and Human Services, it was him who made the announcement, adding that this funding was part of a larger $5 billion COVID-related program. Here's specifically what he said, again, just yesterday, quote, "This is an investment in expanding our country's ability to respond to the future variants that we might see coming out of COVID. It's an investment in better protecting all of our community, including those who are immunocompromised and who don't respond well to the existing vaccines." And just like Operation Warp Speed before it, this new initiative also has a clever name. It's called Project Next Gen, and here's how the money will be allocated. $1 billion of the dollars will be put towards 4 different Phase 2B clinical trial studies on a COVID-19 vaccine. Then another $326 million will go to Regeneron for a monoclonal antibody. And then another $100 million will go to Global Health Investment Corp., which, just for a reference, is a, quote, nonprofit organization that is managing an investment portfolio known as BARDA Ventures, referring to the federal agency called Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA. The portfolio should expand investments in new technologies that will accelerate responses in the future. And so, in total, you have $1 billion going towards the development of new vaccines, $300 million for more monoclonal antibodies, and then another cool $100 million for new technologies to help accelerate the future COVID response. Furthermore, besides this recently announced package, you have Ms. Natalie Winters, a reporter with the War Room, recently uncover a trove of government contracts. You can see some of them up here on your screen. And these contracts, they reveal the fact that, quote, the federal government has started purchasing COVID-19 equipment and hiring advisors on, quote unquote, safety protocols. The unearthed government contracts from entities including the Department of Defense show millions in taxpayer funds being used to purchase COVID-19 equipment such as test kits. Some of the contracts, which are traceable via the federal government's spending database, are even scheduled to begin in future months such as September and October. The Department of Defense, for example, gave Hologic Sales and Service LLC a $1.5 million contract beginning on October 1st that's set to conclude in May of next year. However, this all gets even wilder, which we'll get into right after I introduce the sponsor of today's episode by showing you this little piece of money. Or rather, I should say that this is fake money being printed into oblivion by those geniuses over in Washington, D.C. And so before they completely obliterate your life savings, what I recommend you do is to convert that fake money into real money, which is physical gold and silver. And the best company to use is the sponsor of today's episode, American Hartford Gold, who also happens to be my own personal gold and silver bullion dealer. They have thousands of other 5-star ratings across the country. They have an A+ rating with a Better Business Bureau. They ship quickly, directly to your doorstep. Their product listings are awesome. They're stacked with great options of gold and silver bullion and coins, and they have amazing customer service. When you pick up the phone and call them, you feel good knowing you support a company that supports the truth getting out into the wider American audience. And so calling them up is a no-brainer. But best of all, if you tell them that Roman sent you, they will throw in up to $5,000 worth of free silver with your first purchase. It's 866-242-2352, or you can simply text the word Roman, R-O-M-A-N, Roman, to 65532. Of course, all their details will be down in the description box below. And now, let's head on back to the studio. Meaning that the federal government is gearing up for a supposed resurgence of COVID. And the best part is that the media is once again laying the groundwork ahead of winter. For instance, here is a short segment from NBC News, and as you're watching it, please note the way that the producers of that particular program decided to frame the entire issue.
COVID is making a comeback this summer, so many of us would like to leave it in the past, but cases are once again on the rise. So when will new booster shots roll out? Ann Thompson asked the CDC director.
This summer, most Americans left COVID in the past, gathering together once again mask-free. But tonight, signs of a COVID resurgence. Across the country, COVID hospitalizations jumped more than 14% in the most recent week, but far lower than pandemic levels. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel.
What's behind this uptick in COVID that we're seeing?
The main driver of this is a variant that's relatively newer to the scene, EG5. It's easier to give and get, so that makes it kind of easier to pass along.
It's been almost a year since the last COVID booster came out. CDC Director Dr. Mandy Cohen.
The new COVID booster is expected to be approved by the FDA, and then we will make recommendations from the CDC probably by the second or third week of September.
Will it protect against this new strain?
Yes. The booster is tailored to what we are seeing circulating now.
Critics say the federal government is behind once again. People knew there was going to be a COVID resurgence. So why don't don't we have a booster today? Why do we have to wait until next month?
The way we go about doing just like we do with our flu shots, right? We make sure that we're looking at the ways in which the virus changed. They look at and evaluate that. The FDA is doing its work. We likely will see this as an annual COVID shot, just like the flu shot.
So until the new COVID booster comes, get prepared. Stock up on at-home tests. They do cover that new strain. Keep a mask handy in case you're in a crowded place. And most of all, get your shots, COVID, flu, and RSV, all by Halloween to give yourself your best chance of staying healthy.
A reminder that COVID never went away.
Didn't.
Right. And thank you.
And so, taken as a whole, we're seeing colleges and businesses reinstitute their COVID and vaccine mandates. We're seeing the government buying up supplies, hiring advisors, and investing in technologies in order to help accelerate future COVID response. And then we're seeing the media run these different segments on how all this is normal and justified, given the rising number of COVID cases. And so, well, all I can say is that I hope you're ready for whatever's coming next this upcoming winter. If you'd like to go through any of my research for today's episode, I'll throw all my research notes down into the description box below this video for you to check out, which I should mention is that description box right below those like and subscribe buttons, both of which I hope you take a moment to smash. Now lastly, you might not know this, but on the very same day that Joe Biden was sworn into office, by some magical coincidence, on that very same day, YouTube made the decision to demonetize our program. Since January 10th of 2021, we have not been able to run ads before, during, or after our episodes, and the Super Chat feature has just been magically disabled. Now, every few months, I appeal that decision, and for the past 3 years, that appeal has always been rejected. And their reason for the rejection is that some channel associated with our account has grossly violated YouTube's policies. Now, for the last 3 years, they've never told us which channel, which piece of content, and which policy. And furthermore, every single one of our channels receives that very same message, meaning that every single channel has been denied monetization because the system claims one of the other channels violated a content policy. It's beautiful how it all works. And so, if you'd like to support the journalism that we do here at the Epoch Times, if you'd like to support our work and perhaps get access to some of the best content online, well, the best way is to subscribe. And in fact, this month, the Epoch Times has extended their awesome sale. Just 25 cents a week for the entire year, which, if you do the math, works itself out to just be a single $1 a month. And so, if you've been on the fence about subscribing, but you're definitely looking for a source of honest news and you're fed up with all the censorship here, well, perhaps take the sale as an opportunity to try the Epoch Times for yourself. That way, you can get access to all of the phenomenal documentaries, all the great videos, the movies, the infographics, the deep analysis, the awesome articles, the great newsletters. And also, I should mention that I myself publish somewhere between 1 to 3 exclusive episodes of Facts Matter over on Epoch TV. And so if you'd like to watch some extra episodes of Facts Matter, including a huge backlog of exclusive episodes that we've put out over the last several years, well, you can find it all over there. I'll throw a link to the sale page. It'll be right there at the top of the description box below. I hope you check it out, and I hope you try the Epoch Times. You can, of course, cancel anytime, but I'm sure you won't. I'm sure that you will love it. Again, that link is right there at the top of the description box below. Hope you check it out. And then, until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.